Hello!
Hello!
Hello, whiskey lovers around the world. Jock here, and I'm speaking to Annabel Thomas. And you can see in the background that I am not really at their distillery, but Annabel has got the inside, I have the outside as a background. But I'm in Arnhem in the Netherlands, and Annabel, you are in London? Or?
I'm in London, yes.
London, it's a place for me. Right, we Bresser and Timber in the Netherlands, for the people in the Netherlands who will be watching this mostly, you know that we have Nc'Nean. Am I saying it properly?
You are saying it perfectly. Nc'Nean.
Nc'Nean, there we go. Beautiful bottle. Absolutely beautiful bottle. Sits nicely in the hand. It's a proper dumpy bottle, as we used to call it in Scotland, a dumpy bottle. And really like it. It's got a little sole in it, in the bottom, like a wine glass, so that you can hold on to it with one hand and pour. Right. First question, Annabel. You were living in London, or still are, more or less, and you had an idea to start a whiskey distillery. How did that come about?
Well, you could just describe it as madness, but there is a bit more to the story than that. So the distillery is actually on my parents' farm. So you're sitting, in theory, in my parents' farm garden at the moment. And it was originally a family idea, I guess. A family dream. The buildings that you can see behind you are what used to be old, fairly derelict farm buildings. And we had this dream. Wouldn't it be lovely to have a whiskey distillery?
Yes.
But that was very much a dream for a long time. We sort of talked about it. No one did anything about it. And then I was working at the time as a management consultant in London for a company called Bain. And I took a sabbatical because they let you do those things unpaid, but you could just take 3 months off to do what you wanted.
Cool.
So I did that, and I said I'd do some research on the distillery at the same time. So I took a trip to Islay and visited lots of distilleries. And at the time, Kilchoman was one of the only new distilleries really around. You know, everything else had been going for hundreds of years. And anyway, I loved it. I fell in love with whiskey, but I also felt like there were some things maybe lacking in the industry that we could bring. So there wasn't a big focus on sustainability. There wasn't a big focus on experimenting with new flavors. And I just thought, that's what we're going to do. Wow. And that's really the point that it turned from like a dream to something a bit more concrete. So, wow. And then about 6 months later, having thought it would be super easy, we realized this was not going to be very easy and someone needed to do it full time. So I just didn't think too much about it and quit my job. And that was 7 years ago.
Wow. Okay. And you worked with Dr. Jim Swan at the start, eh? God rest his soul. The late Jim Swan, a wonderful man. I've tasted many of his wonderful creations, and was he the first consultant?
He was. I actually now can't remember how we were put in touch with him. I think my father was introduced to him somehow, but you know, he's obviously a legend within the industry, and I think anyone you would have talked to and said we're thinking of starting a distillery would have said, oh, you've got to talk to Jim Swan. So we were working with him before I even quit my last job, so from about 2012 until he died in 2017, and he was very formative in really anything to do with the production side, both how the distillery is designed, but also the recipes we use and the casks we use and so on. So, and
yeah, therefore, that's where we get the STR, of course.
Exactly.
That comes in. I understand.
Exactly.
Of his creations that he consulted on from all over the world, basically, and it's a love it or hate it thing. Well, there are people who are neutral, I think, but some people, for some reason unknown to me, they don't like it, but I love it. You know, I think it's a wonderful idea. It's a great creation.
I completely agree, but I think you're right. There are some people who don't like it, and I think some people don't like the taste or think they don't like the taste, but there's also some people who sort of don't seem to like the concept for some reason, but I think it makes great whiskey. So
yes, Yeah, I understand exactly what you mean. I get like that with lots of stuff. I'm an old man. I'm a grumpy old man, and I give people a row when they say, "Oh, I don't like that." Then I say, "Okay, why? Why?" Well, I just don't like it. No, no, no.
Exactly.
Oh, wait a minute. You're not a child. Why don't you like it? And if they can't explain to me why they don't like it, I won't accept it. I just don't accept it. It's unacceptable.
Exactly. Exactly.
So anyway, I do like it, and I can say why too. That's the thing. If I like something, I can say why. I was uh, a guest speaker at the for people who want to open liquor stores or are learning to work in liquor stores, and they have to pass an exam. And I was one of the guest speakers, and I always said, you know, if you're saying to a client in your shop, this whiskey tastes like it's fruity, that's not enough information, because are you talking about pineapples or apples or Granny Smith apples, or are you talking about pears? What are you talking about? Oranges or lemons? What fruit? So in this case, on this bottle, which I've just, which I have here, lovely, beautiful bottle. We'll get to that in a minute. As I smell it, it's very, very pungent. Some whiskies, they're not very pungent. They don't come straight up straight away.
Mm.
This one goes straight to the nose, and I'm getting certain types of fruits from it. But the fruits I'm getting is soft fruit. I'm getting peaches and
Yeah.
blackcurrants. My wife, she has a big plot, a garden. What do you call it again?
Allotment.
An allotment, yeah, that's the word. Yeah, I forget English words. And she grows raspberries all around it and jam. And from that, I'm getting that jamminess from it too. And tannin.
Which I think actually comes a lot from the underlying spirit, which is another legacy of Jim. He was very big, apart from on STR casts, of getting a very light, fruity spirit to start the whole process off.
Lovely. Now, you already told us about the remoteness and your parents having the farm there. So the obviously you could just, with permission of your parents, could build and start there. I understand.
Exactly. That was the kind of logic behind the location, I suppose. But it's also, in some respects, a good place to have a distillery because it really is literally on a farm.
Yes.
And so the cows, for example, eat the draff, which is the byproduct from distilling and things. So it's a nice circular system.
Oh. Is it a mixed farm, or with dairy and with produce, or? It's
just no dairy, just cows for meat and sheep.
Okay, no, there's no grain, nothing.
No.
Okay, that's usually. But you know, even though you said it's a very logical choice. Something that I don't understand is the just to be able to drive there is you could get to the Outer Hebrides quicker than you can get to your place.
Yes, well, that is the flip side of the coin, if you like. It's funny because I visited a distillery in central Edinburgh, Holyrood, and they have none of the logistical issues we have. But then when they have the draft, it's like a nightmare for them to do anything with it. And they have this very complicated setup. So it definitely is two sides of the coin. But yes, it is very remote. And that does provide us with some challenges, not least me personally having to get there from London very regularly. But also now with it, I mean, I guess it was a real challenge to build it because getting building materials and builders there is difficult. But but since that phase, it's actually been okay in terms of operating there. You know, we just bring malt in and casks, and that's kind of it, and we get on with it. We have found it to be more of a challenge recently with bottling because it's a lot of packaging you need to bring in and packaging you need to bring out, and you know.
You're bottling yourself?
Yes.
Then I don't know why I didn't pick up on that one earlier.
Yes.
Okay.
We are doing it all ourselves. We are actually in the process of building, well, we haven't quite got to breaking ground yet, but we're about to build a proper bottling building. At the moment, it's a little bit Heath Robinson, as we say. But yeah, we're doing it all on site. We debated for a long time whether we should do it on site or not. Obviously, as we're finding, getting packaging to somewhere very remote is difficult. But on the other hand, we really liked the idea of using the same water, the spring water that we use to make the whiskey, to dilute it before we bottle. And also one of the original reasons we created the distillery was to try and create employment in what is an otherwise quite remote area that doesn't have many jobs. So all of these things just seem to, say that we should bottle there.
A couple of weeks ago, it was on Landward, not your place, but there was Landward, the Scottish country file, which is on Sunday mornings on the BBC. I was watching about how difficult it is to find employment if you live, and many young people going away from the area. So it's wonderful that you're creating something for them.
Exactly, and that is a real issue in most remote communities in Scotland, and it creates all these knock-on effects because you have the young people move away, and then no one has children, and then there's no one to go to the school.
Yes.
And then there's no one to do the jobs, and it becomes it is really a very big issue. So
yeah, and it's a single track road. I take it to get in there, so the logistics of getting big lorries in is a bit of a bother.
Absolutely, we can't have articulated trucks.
No.
So we're constantly. Cindy, who is our office manager, has become an expert in truck lengths and which hauliers have the right size trucks and all of these things.
Wow, it's amazing. Now, right, we've spoke of the logistics and why and the remote part, and there is many people don't really care about a unique selling point, especially in the Netherlands, where, contrary to popular belief, the Dutch are not all ultra, everything's allowed and we have no laws or something, but many of them very Calvinistic and straight thinking people. And they don't really care about a unique selling point. But what is becoming very, very popular here, as is all over the world, is the organic side of things, because many people are beginning to realize what we're doing to this world and what we're leaving behind for Keith Richards. Once the planet dies, Keith and the cockroaches are the only ones left.
The only ones left, exactly. Got to think of them.
Yeah. So I think Keith should come up to your place.
He should. I doubt he'd make it all the way there, to be honest.
So Keith, if you're watching this, give him a call. You'd like it up there. You would. They're doing something for you. So, but getting back to the serious part of the question. Sorry, I was being flippant. Sorry about that. The organic part, which I do totally and utterly agree with. My wife and I try and I even make my own soaps and my own shampoos and stuff. We tend to be doing away with plastic in this house, so we agree with it. I'm on your side on this, but I want to know about it. Tell us about the whole organic thing.
Well, I guess before we even got to organic, sustainability as a whole was a critical part of what I wanted to achieve with the distillery. I felt, and I still feel, like it's not being given enough focus in the distilling industry, and in particular in Scotland. And so our initial plans were to use 100% renewable energy, which is what we do at the distillery. And that was, distilling is a very energy intensive process, right? These stills are like giant kettles and you need a lot of energy to heat them up. So once we'd sorted that out, I then started to think about, well, what are the other major components of whiskey and how can we improve our Nc'Nean's impact on the planet through all the other bits and pieces we do. And barley is obviously an enormous part of that. Mm-hmm. So we decided to only buy organic barley. And the original reason for that was merely for the impact it had on the supply chain. So we don't farm any of the barley ourselves. We buy from 10 organic farmers across Scotland. Oh. And I just, when you go to the organic farms, it is so different in terms of the birds and the bees and the general biodiversity there, that it just felt like the right thing to do. But the other thing that we have found, and this is, we did not anticipate this happening at all, is that I think the grain does actually have an impact on the taste as well. We didn't do it for that reason as well, but I think we do get some richness from the grain from organic. So it's a win-win.
Yes. Yeah, that's the big talking point in if you go into Whiskey Fora on the internet, or even the Facebook groups, the several Facebook groups where whiskey enthusiasts are. The big thing is this terroir. Is that a thing or not? I am an oenologue. I went to the wine academy, and I know exactly what it does for wine. But to be very honest, I haven't been totally convinced yet that it really does something, the terroir, for grain. But I'm open to it. I don't have a closed mind. If someone can prove it to me, I'm fine to be convinced. But are you convinced that it makes a difference?
So one of the biggest whiskey retailers over here run normally the London Whisky Show every October, and this year they did a week-long virtual whiskey show, and there was a panel on terroir. Is it a con in spirits? I think it's misleading to talk about terroir as that word in spirits, because it doesn't mean the same as it means in wine. No. In wine, it means something very specific. However, I am convinced that in general, I think in whiskey, people haven't put enough focus on the spirit. There's so much focus on the maturation, and no one cares about the spirit. And we'll come on and talk about some other elements of that. But I do think the variety of the barley and some elements of how it's grown impact the taste. Whether the actual soil it's grown in and whether it's north facing or south facing or whatever else matters, I'm less convinced. But I do think that fundamental elements about the grain are important.
Okay. Yeah. I think so. Yeah. But terroir, I actually meant the soil and
yeah, which, I think there may be elements of an organic soil makeup, which hasn't been kind of degraded by pesticides that improve it. That may be contributing to some of the richness, but actually for us, it's kind of impossible to say, because we don't make anything that's not organic. So we can never do a side-by-side comparison.
Yes. Yeah, I get where you're coming from. Yeah, it just makes me wonder, like, for example, Golden Promise barley grown in Fife, or Golden Promise barley grown in Angus. Would that be, that's I can't get my head around it. But what my head can get around is my next question. That's to me a really, really fascinating part: the yeast strains.
Yes.
Now, it's in the United States of America. They've been doing it forever. I mean, they've got mash bills with different yeast strains, and in Scotland they just buy these big plastic bags of Maori and throw it in, basically.
Well, or mostly whole tankers of Maori and pump it in.
Yeah, even.
Yeah, exactly. And this came to me through a couple of different kind of inputs, I guess. One was Jim Swan's famous for using two different types of yeast. He really broke the mold in that sense and said, don't just use traditional distilling yeast. Let's use something else that will get all these fruity flavors into the spirit. But also when I thought, whiskey is basically beer that you distill. And in the UK, you get all of these lovely craft breweries who are shouting about everything they do, and you don't find any of them not talking about yeast. They all care passionately about yeast because it's such an important element of the flavor. And I just thought, why are we not talking about this more in distilling? So we run yeast experiments every year, which are great fun. The idea of them is to create pockets of parcels of whiskey that have a different flavor profile, basically, and we choose weird and wonderful yeasts. Generally we choose ones that have been, because these yeast strains are kind of bred, if you like, to create some flavor or others, and we choose ones that are used or created for wine or for rum or something else, and see see what flavors we get in the spirit.
Wow, this is what we need, I think. You know, and I hope that you'll lead the way. That many more will do this. You know, really is what we need. We need more of this. And what, brewers, they wouldn't dream of just using one type of yeast for every drink.
Exactly. Can you imagine every brewery saying, "Oh yeah, we just use the standard brewing yeast"? They just wouldn't.
No. So actually, I'm very pleased with it.
So yeah, I'm excited because we haven't released any of these yeast experiments yet. We have a couple of different recipes anyway that we run through the distillery, which also is quite unusual. There's what we call a young recipe and an old recipe. They're distilled in completely different ways. They use different yeast, different cut points, different everything. And then on top of that, we run these yeast experiments. So the yeast experiments at the moment, they're just sitting in the warehouse, and hopefully we'll have some ready to release next year or something.
Wow, how cool is that? I'm really looking forward to it. And you know, I was coming over with my wife this year, but because of all this, no, not this year, last summer. Yeah, that's this year.
It was this summer. Yeah, it was meant to be this summer, June or something.
Yeah, I was supposed to be coming, but the ferries weren't even running, and we couldn't get over. But we'll darken your doorstep one of these days.
Yes.
Hopefully I can get to taste some of it and have a wee, as they would say in Scotland, a wee shot at it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that would be lovely. And wine yeast too, you say, yeah? Yes,
we have so far used a red wine yeast, a Chardonnay yeast, and a champagne yeast.
Good grief. Wow.
And but what's so exciting, and this is the best bit actually, is when the spirit comes off the still and you can taste it just in the distillery, because you get the flavors that you would expect. So you use a rum yeast and you get pineapple flavors in the spirit. You use a red wine yeast and you get all those kind of dark berry notes that you'd expect from red wine. So it's great.
Oh yeah. Oh, so looking forward to it. No idea. I really think it's lead the way, carry on, be a beacon, do it.
Exactly. Do it. That's the idea. Stretch people's imaginations.
Right. Women. What about them? 50% of the world's population, and maybe not even 10% of the population of people working in whiskey industry. It's you know, why? I don't know. But you have lots of women working.
We do. We actually only have 3 men. So they're feeling a little bit outnumbered, which is very unusual, to be honest, in most workplaces, but especially in whiskey. It wasn't, so we have 10 people in total, 3 men, 7 women. It was not on purpose at all. But on the other hand, it's also, I don't think, a coincidence, if you see what I mean. So I think because I am a woman and I run it, I don't know whether that means we attract more women, or I'm more likely to recruit women. But actually, so it was definitely not on purpose, but I think it's absolutely brilliant. I'm so pleased with it. And I think we also not only have a lot of women, but we hardly have anyone who's worked in whiskey before. So our distillery manager has worked for Diageo for a couple of decades, and our brand ambassador has worked in whiskey industry, mostly in bars, for his whole life. But almost everybody else is new to the industry, and I quite like the fact that a different mix of genders and non-whiskey perspectives can help. It generates interesting ideas and things that people haven't done before. So
wow,
it's great.
Yeah, I think it's great too. Yeah, well, I just wondered, for those of you watching just now, I had sent Annabel this question and said if this was an uncomfortable question that we would leave it, but that went quite easy. Yeah, that was okay.
And we're actually taking it further, and we had a lady, so not this summer just gone, but in 2019 we ran an internship at the distillery for 2 women to come and see what it's like to actually distill, and we had a lady from the Netherlands join us for that week. So
oh, nice. Lovely. Yeah,
we couldn't run it again this year, but hopefully next year we'll do it again. And that's all just kind of as soon as we as soon as people started commenting on how unusual it was to have so many women, I thought, and you know, maybe it would be worth encouraging more women and get, you know, bring them to the distillery and show them that it's not some kind of terrifying industry, and you don't have to be able to heave ton bags of malt around to work in it.
Oh, you know, actually, I'm glad that me as a man can ask you that question, because the next time you're over, and if you have any time, you should come to the house and meet my wife. You'll see, and ask anybody that knows us. I tend to take the role on in this house, which society tends to give to a woman. You know, I'll say to you, oh, sit down, would you like to eat something? I'll cook something nice and pour them all something nice to drink. And my wife's got this huge allotment, you know, and she does all this carpentry. She built a balcony, an American porch she built, you know, with hammer and nails and drills and power tools. She does it all, and wallpapers.
I love it.
So yeah, that's how our family works. So yeah, I'm glad, and you know, many men will think, well, there's a lot of heavy lifting involved, but we've got machines for that now.
Exactly, maybe 50 years ago, but yeah, there's not too much shoveling anymore. Only when something breaks do you have to shovel the malt or the draft. Oh
yeah. Oh, and that would happen every now and again.
Yeah.
Oh, and your mill for it wouldn't happen to be a Porteous one, would it?
Sadly not.
Oh, you got a new one.
A new one, yeah, exactly. A new one. We did look for a Porteous one, but we couldn't find one that. I think we couldn't find any that were available, but we also have you'll see when you eventually make it to the distillery, because it's all old buildings. Okay. It's very tight spaces, and we had to find something that fitted exactly into the right space we had for it. So.
Oh, nice. And before we stop this, because I could go on and on, but you know, people will stop watching after a while. You know, that I've just finished a glass. I'm going to pour myself another one because I enjoy it so much. And I'll talk about the taste.
Yes.
Now, the bottle is beautiful. Your bottle is all, even that's organic, eh?
Yes, it is all 100% recycled glass. So normally a clear glass bottle would have 80% virgin materials or something, but this is all glass that's been given a new life as glass again.
And the cork?
Yeah. All wood or cork, so all natural materials.
Beautiful, lovely, lovely. And what I'm getting in the nose is that soft fruit that I was saying at the start, soft fruit. And then in the mouth I get a little bit of tannins, but they're very, very mild. They're like an underlying thing where all the other things are dancing on top of. So we have this lovely fruitiness, which has been balanced out by a little bit of bitterness in the tannins, bringing it into a lovely, lovely balance. And, you know, I don't know if any of the people watching have noticed how I had quite a mouthful and I swallowed it. And normally if you're swallowing 46% alcohol, your eyes tend to blink. But with this one, it's not. It's just so easy to drink. It's just so an easy drinking whiskey. As the Eton boys would say, very quaffable.
Exactly. Well, that's really what we wanted to make. You know, we wanted something that people could enjoy, that was easy and lovely.
Yeah, it's very lovely indeed. And yeah, and you said, I read on one of your interviews in a magazine, I've forgotten which one, that you were aiming for a whiskey that worked well in a certain cocktail.
Yes. Well, my favourite is whiskey and soda. I don't know whether that's complex enough really to classify as a cocktail. But I just think if you don't want to drink neat spirits, which, you know, either some people don't want to or it's just not the right time of day, then I just think whiskey are not too dilute. So you only want to add a small amount of soda. But I just think it's the most wonderful drink. It doesn't, you know, it can bring alive some of the flavours rather than drowning them, and it just makes a lovely, long, refreshing, savoury drink. It's great.
Yeah, yeah. I think you live in the south of England. You probably had the same kind of summer as we had here in the Netherlands. It was here. It was almost as if you were living in the Middle East or something. It was really hot.
Exactly.
And I like in a time like that. Most people, if they're going to have alcohol, they'll have like a white wine or a rosé from the fridge, or maybe a beer, but stay away from spirits. But I like to put whiskey in the freezer, and then have the soda water in the fridge, and have them both cool together, and maybe just a little slice of lemon in it. Beautiful. Yeah,
exactly. It's such a great drink, and I feel, I mean, I don't know about in the Netherlands, but in the UK, that was a normal way to drink whiskey 50 years ago, and it's a great way to drink whiskey, and everyone seems to have forgotten about it. So we're trying to just give it a little a little reminder. This is a great way to drink it. So
it absolutely is, 100%. It was so nice of you to give me your time, Annabel. It was really, really nice. And we'll put it up on Bresser and Timmer's Facebook page and on their YouTube channel. And we've got nothing to sell at the moment, but it will be coming soon.
More is coming soon. We're busy bottling.
Yeah. I'm going to stop recording, Annabel, but hang around, please. And then I'll stop recording, and I'll let you know when it's stopped recording, and we can have a wee chat at the end of it as well. So from Annabel and from me to all of you whiskey lovers in the world, Slan Shiva, and
Cheers.
Sante.